Hi everyone, and welcome to the 6th episode of Foodie Fridays. You guessed it, we're here on location at the Culinary Arts Center at Kenilworth Recreation Center in Ward 7. And as you can tell, I've been upgraded a bit. We're here with the fabulous CEO of Howard University Hospital, Miss Anita Jenkins, and she has just something in store for us. You saw what she made in the 4th and 5th episode. It gets better. And now we're on to dessert. What do you have in store?
So we're gonna have dessert. Homemade desserts warm the soul so much. So this time I'm making a peach cobbler. Well, some people might think, well, that's hard. I'm gonna make a homemade crust that is so quick and easy, you'll be able to do it and want to do it each and every time you have a pie. It's quick because I'm not using fresh peaches. I'm using canned peaches and heavy syrup that enable us to have a very delicious and home-cooked pie. It is nutritious because it doesn't have any preservatives. I use very little salt, and the seasonings, and chefs will tell you, season up that stuff instead of salt it. We won't miss that at all. So I'm excited to show you my homemade peach cobbler, which, by the way, some might argue, because this is on video, a cobbler only has crust on top. I do make a cobbler with the crust on the bottom and the top because you need more crust.
That is awesome. I cannot wait to taste it. We are in for a real treat today. Now, before we get to baking, I have to ask you, you started in this new role in February of 2020, just as we were entering into the public health emergency for COVID-19, and life as we knew it changed. I can only imagine how difficult it is to start at the beginning of a pandemic. Can you tell us a bit about what have you all been doing over the last year at Howard University Hospital?
I was excited to join Howard University Hospital because of its history and because of what it needs to be in the future. So I came from a top performing hospital in Ohio, and I was proud to do that, and many of our leaders also joined me, and sure enough, COVID came. It helped us see, it helped us understand our community, it helped us understand Ward 7 and 8, pre-existing conditions, and then why we saw more COVID patients coming from that area. And it helped us care and understand what we needed to do. So at Howard University Hospital, here's what we're doing. We are improving our quality, our service, our look, our landscaping, our paint, our uniforms, and we are making sure that Howard University Hospital, and I say this to my staff all the time, will be the top performing hospital in Washington, D.C. and a world-class hospital in the United States. And that's what I tell our team, and that's what we'll be. So feel free to come, but most of all, do not delay care. If you're having pain, if you're feeling sick, if your legs are swelling, please seek care wherever your closest hospital so that you can be well, live long, and be able to eat peaches, unless you've got the sugar. Okay.
Well, that's just amazing. As you can tell, Miss Jenkins is just absolutely dynamic. We're so appreciative of your leadership and all that Howard University does for the residents of all 8 wards of the District of Columbia.
Yes.
So let's get started. Let's focus on pie now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me back again. My name is Anita Jenkins. I'm the CEO of Howard University Hospital, but I'm a mom and I really do love to cook. But today we're really talking about healthy recipes, and some might say, well, a peach cobbler is not a healthy recipe. A home-cooked meal is always better because you have the opportunity of not adding preservatives to it or too many salts. There are so many additional chemicals that are added to store-bought food that aren't good for you because they want it to have shelf life, because they want it to have enhanced flavors. We're not doing that today. We're gonna have a quick peach cobbler, and I started with peaches. It's quick because I didn't make it from fresh peaches, which is a lot more work, but I used canned peaches. I used canned peaches that have heavy syrup. They have a nice glue to them. It's easy to prepare them. You just put the canned peaches in. This is 3 large cans of peaches, actually. You'll find them on your fruit shelf. All you have to do is, we're adding sugar. Yes, we are adding sugar. We're adding a half stick of butter. One of our series, our chef talks about how oils or fats enhance flavor. So you don't put a whole lot considering the size of this cobbler, but cut up in 4s a little butter. I'm not Paula Deen, I'll put that much butter, but I'm gonna put some butter in that for flavoring. A half teaspoon of salt. Even in sweet recipes, you do have to add a little salt. The Bible says that we are to be like the salt of the earth. That means we enhance, we flavor, we make things taste good. And so we're adding a little salt to our peach cobbler, not a lot. And then I use 3 of the standard ingredients that you see. And a lot of people don't use this one, the 1/3. So I do use nutmeg, about a 1/3 teaspoon, and a little more. The rest, my mom's recipe says a 1/3, and then I go, yeah, okay, a little more. And then cinnamon, about a 1/3 teaspoon, and a little more. And a little more. And then nutmeg. A lot of people don't use nutmeg as much, but we do. I put this in my peach cobbler and in my apple pie. I actually have a recipe that I make peach apple cobblers, and that's very delicious. You put them in there for both, so that's really good. Your inner pie is ready. Stir it up, put it aside, and we're going to make the quickest crust you ever. It's going to be easier to make this crust than to go to the store and buy that crust. So let's just put that aside. Wonderful. Pie crust, and I'll talk about a cobbler. People talk about a cobbler, and I think they only have crust on top. For my cobbler, I do put crust on the bottom and crust on the top. People like it that way. It just seems to add a little bit more flavor. So we're making a crust that goes on the bottom and on the top. 4 cups of flour. You don't ever want to use self-rising flour in recipes like this. You don't need it. 4 teaspoons of baking powder. Level teaspoons. That's what that thing is there for. If you ever, it took me years to realize why they put that there. Half teaspoon of salt, or I'm sorry, 1 whole teaspoon of salt. Stir all your dry ingredients, as you know, even when you're making cookies from scratch. You stir all those dry ingredients together, and then you have to stir the wet ingredients in. The wet ingredients are very simple, and people don't make crusts with oil often, but that's how I was raised to do it. You start with 1 1/3 cup, and this is a, like I said, this is a double batch, 1 1/3. And then 2/3 cups of milk, and that takes it all the way up to the top. So you add this milk and oil, and then my mother's recipe says do this. 2 tablespoons, right? She said take 1 tablespoon and let it spill, and another tablespoon and let it spill. Those are her measurements. So you add your liquid ingredients to the flour. This does not take a lot of work. My mother used to say, don't overwork it. That means don't stir it too much, don't play around with it too much, you know, just let it get wet, and you'll start seeing a crust come together. Look at that, it's starting to look like crust. And every once in a while it might be a little too wet. You might want to add some more, a handful of, just a throw of flour on top of it, and that will take away the rest of that moisture. It's ready to use. I have a trick for making pie crust. I don't know if other people do that. You ever do this? Wax paper. I am not making a big mess on my countertop, number 1. So you take your crust, like a nice big handful of crust, put it on wax paper. This may be the only thing you ever use wax paper for. Little flour on it. So you're making the bottom of that crust, and the thing is, you'll be able to handle that crust after it's rolled out. You won't have to, this glass top makes it a little slippery. And this is not my big rolling pin. I have a rolling pin that has a larger circumference. This goes faster. think about the shape of the pan that you're getting ready to use. Super simple. You have to move your wax paper and make it thin. You want it about 1/8 of an inch if you can measure that, but certainly thin enough. You don't want a big, thick, nasty crust. Now, how do you get that crust in a casserole dish without having a lot of headache? Like this. And then it peels off. Here's your crust. Take your time. I'm trying to rush it a little bit, and you just don't get to do that. But you've just made your crust. The thing about crust, it's like Play-Doh. You get a little spot somewhere, just fill it in. You won't need quite this much around the edges. You do want to make sure your sides are covered. I'll show you why in a minute. There we go. There's that. Now, doesn't look very neat right now. Doesn't need to. If you've ever seen pizza crust, when they have pizza crust and they bake it first, it bubbles up. You don't want that to happen to your pie. So you take and you just put some fork holes so that that heat can come through and that pie crust can be right. Now we've got to make the top. Make the top of this crust, and it should not feel sticky. It should feel like dough. So I had to add a little more flour. I think I let it spill over, let my mother's recipe spill over a little bit too much. The thing about it is, it will taste good. If you've never made a pie or a pie crust from scratch, keep trying. It is so rewarding to get to know, and you make pies. I am often very, very busy, but nothing satisfies me more than to have friends and family over and bake some pies and some dishes just from scratch. It's soul food, right? Now, I suspect that this is not quite big enough, so you add a little bit more until you actually have a rectangle. Duh. It's pretty quick. Now, look at that. Now you're ready to actually add your peaches. Three large cans of peaches gives you an average size casserole dish. Take your crust and just lay it. It sticks, and you can always course correct there. Your next special meal or your next Thanksgiving, you know, pull out a homemade pie. It's a big deal. There we go. Now, you also want to make it look nice. Okay, I think I'll be fine. Make a nice roll all the way around the pie. If you don't have enough, you pinch some from somewhere else, some extra, and you make a nice roll all the way around this cobbler. Someone's going to be needed there. Need a little bit more from here. All right, let's start making that neater. I must admit, this next step, I also learned from my mom. And it looks a little raggedy. So I like to make it so that it's, you know, pinched well. It's all around there, pinched well. Then you do this. 2 fingers and a thumb in between. Well, look at that. Fingers and a thumb in between. And just squeeze that dough, just press it up against the pan so that it makes that nice fluted edge. I guess that's what you could call it. That's the only way I know how to make a pie crust, right? And as long as my family and my friends love it, that's all that matters. So, the same thing as we did underneath that crust, you have to do on top. You can make a nice, just any way that you can release some of those juices so that they won't bubble over and really expand that crust. And you can put the letter on there for P, just in case you're making peach pies, cobblers, cherry pies. I put the letters on top. And then you put it in the oven. 350. Pies take a little bit longer. It usually takes me about an hour under a fairly low bake. Get some ice cream. The peach cobbler's ready. How fun is that? So it bakes up. The crust is nice and fluffy, and the juices on the inside are really delicious. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you for joining us today for some home cooking, some healthy cooking. God bless you.
Wow, thank you so much, Miss Anita. This looks absolutely amazing. And the best part of my job, I get a chance to taste it. So let's check it out. Now, while she's cutting this, we know, in addition to cooking healthy, a crucial part of living a healthy lifestyle is getting some exercise. So tell me, how are you going to burn these calories off?
That's a very good question. Everyone needs to get some cardio work in. That's biking, that's walking, that's exercising. But actually, one of the more important lifetime exercises to do is strength training. It's okay?
This is amazing.
Oh, well, good. It's strength training. So we are covered in muscles, and we have to make sure that our joints and muscles stay strong. As women age, particularly, we have to make sure that we do lift training and strengthening exercises. You don't need anything. You don't need gym equipment. You don't need anything. You need a floor. So if you can do a plank, if you can do squats, that is a full body exercise. And so we want to make sure that we do that. If I had to pick 1 or 2, it would be planks that work your back, your abs, your chest, and your arms. Everybody know what a plank is? You stay down there and just hold it. And then, of course, squats. Squat engages your hips, engages your thighs, your largest muscles. And so when you do that, you'll stay strong for a lifetime.
Wow, that's just amazing. Now, I want to use this opportunity to plug our fitness centers at DPR.
Wonderful.
In fact, we're here in Kenilworth, and this is one of our largest fitness centers.
It's beautiful.
And in fact, there are nearly 30 across the city,
Wow.
and they're free to district residents.
Oh, wow.
So I want our viewers to log on to dpr.dc.gov and check out one of our nearly 30 fitness centers.
I am a district resident, and I will find one near me. That's wonderful.
And I'm going to need one after this. And this is absolutely amazing. This reminds me of the peach cobblers that my mother would make growing up. Now, I grew up in Northeast DC in Ward 5. Fun fact, we actually had a peach tree in our backyard.
Yes. Yep.
So in season, she made cobbler maybe, I want to say, 2 to 3 times a month during the summer months.
Of course.
And this is amazing. My mother would give this 2 thumbs up.
These are good. Oh, I'm so glad. It's good for the soul. It's good for the body. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to take this.
I need to understand. I believe it or not, I don't love sweets that much. This could stand a little more baking.
I have a sweet tooth.
I don't. But I can always tell by the juice. I think the juice is okay. Not bad.